The package arrived on a rainy Thursday, wrapped in faded brown paper and tied with twine that looked like it had been knotted decades ago. Emily nearly tossed it into the recycling bin, assuming it was another pile of junk mail forwarded from her old address, but the return label stopped her. There was no address, no city or state, just a single word scrawled in block letters: Megan. For a moment, Emily's breath caught in her throat. Megan Harper had been her best friend once, the kind of girl who made summers electric, who laughed too loud, who dared Emily to sneak out of cabins at camp when the counselors slept. But Megan was gone. She had died in a car accident 3 weeks earlier, and Emily had stood at her funeral clutching a wilted bouquet. Numa's old camp friends whispered about how Megan always lived too fast. With trembling fingers, Emily tore the twine and unwrapped the paper. Inside was a shoebox, its edges warped and its lid covered in stickers that had long since faded. She recognized them instantly: little stars, peace signs, a faded rainbow, stickers Megan had plastered over her trunk the summer they turned 14. Emily lifted the lid. A smell of mildew and cedar wafted out, the scent of attics and old cabins. Inside lay a stack of spiral-bound journals, their covers frayed, their pages stuffed with folded notes and Polaroids. On top was a letter, written in Megan's unmistakable slanted handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I never got the chance to tell you everything. Don't be mad. Just read. Start with summer '07. You'll remember. And then you'll understand why I couldn't let it go. Emily's hands shook. She hadn't seen Megan in years. Life had pulled them apart, through college, jobs, and strained phone calls that dwindled into silence. But one thing bound them forever: Camp Silver Lake. The place where their friendship had burned brightest, and the place where everything had begun to fracture. Emily slid the first journal from the stack. Its cover was bright pink, smeared with pen doodles, the words Silver Lake Summer '07 scrawled across it in bubble letters. She hesitated, her stomach knotting, then opened to the first page. June 14th. Cabin 6 smells like dirty socks and mosquito spray. Emily got top bunk like always. Counselors say lights out at 9, but we'll sneak out. There's something weird about the staff this year. They keep whispering when they think we're not listening. And last night, I heard someone crying by the lake. Not a camper. A woman. But when I looked, there was nobody there. Emily blinked, her heart thudding. She flipped through the next few entries, Megan's bubbly voice weaving between jokes about crushes and songs sung around campfires. But every few pages, the tone darkened. June 21st. 2 kids from cabin 3 are gone. Counselors say they went home sick, but that's not true. I saw them sneaking into the woods with Mr. Harris, and they didn't come back. Emily doesn't believe me. I think she doesn't want to. Emily froze. She vaguely remembered that week. 2 boys had left early, or at least that's what the staff said. She hadn't questioned it then, but reading Megan's words now made her chest tighten with dread. She flipped further, her pulse quickening. July 2nd. The crying woman is real. I saw her again last night near the dock. She looked straight at me. She tried to say something, but her mouth wouldn't move, like she was choking. When I told Counselor Jen, she told me to shut up. She said if I kept talking about it, I'd regret it. Emily slammed the journal shut, her breathing shallow. Her first instinct was to laugh, to dismiss it as Megan's flair for drama. Megan had always loved spinning ghost stories, loved to blur the line between truth and fantasy. But the letter on top of the stack, the way Megan had written "You'll understand why I couldn't let it go," it clawed at her. She picked up another journal, marked Summer '08. The first page began with Megan's messy scrawl. If anything happens to me, it's because of what we saw. Don't trust them. Don't trust anyone from camp. Emily's phone buzzed on the counter, making her jump. She glanced at the screen. Her mother. She let it go to voicemail, her eyes locked on the journals. A pit opened in her stomach as memories stirred. Megan pulling her into the woods at night, insisting they'd heard someone whisper their names. Counselors snapping at them for asking questions. The uneasy way some campers had vanished mid-session, never to return. At 13, Emily had brushed it off as ordinary camp strangeness. But what if Megan had been telling the truth all along? Thunder cracked outside, making the windows rattle. Emily shoved the box closed and carried it to her bedroom, setting it on the floor as if it might catch fire in her hands. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at it, torn between dread and guilt. Megan had reached out from beyond the grave with these journals, and Emily could either honor that last request or bury the past forever. She picked up her phone and scrolled to an old number she hadn't dialed in over a decade. Sarah Mitchell, another Silver Lake alum, another girl who had whispered by campfires and dared each other to sneak past the dock. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Outside, rain pounded the roof. Inside, the box of journals waited, humming like a live wire. Emily pressed call. The line rang 5 times before a groggy voice answered. Hello? Who is this? Sarah sounded older, rougher around the edges, nothing like the girl who used to braid friendship bracelets in the cabin bunk beside Emily. It's Emily, she said quickly, her pulse hammering. From Silver Lake. Listen, I know it's been years, but I got something. From Megan. There was silence on the other end, then a sharp inhale. Megan? What are you talking about? She's dead. I know, Emily whispered, clutching the phone tighter. But she left me her journals. From camp. All of them. Sarah's voice dropped to a low, wary tone. Burn them. Emily blinked. What? Burn them, Emily. Don't read them. Don't call me. Pretend they never existed. Then the line went dead. Emily sat frozen, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. Sarah had sounded terrified, not annoyed, not dismissive, terrified. And that made Emily's blood run cold. She grabbed the shoebox from the floor and pulled out another journal. Summer '09. Megan's handwriting grew messier each year, more frantic. July 17th. I caught Mr. Harris and Counselor Jen arguing last night. She wanted to go to the cops. He told her if she did, she'd end up like the others. This isn't just about the camp anymore. There's money, land deals, things they don't want kids to talk about. I think some of the parents knew. But if they knew, why would they keep sending us back? Emily's stomach turned. She remembered her own parents brushing off her complaints about homesickness, insisting Silver Lake was good for her. Had they really believed that, or had there been another reason? A knock rattled her apartment door. Emily froze, the journal slipping from her fingers. She wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she approached and peered through the peephole. A man in a dark windbreaker stood in the hall, his face shadowed by the dim light. He held something in his hands, an envelope. Her heart stuttered. Slowly, she cracked the door open. Can I help you? The man offered a thin smile. Emily Carter? She nodded, uneasy. He handed her the envelope. This is for you. Before she could respond, he turned and walked briskly down the hall, disappearing into the stairwell. Emily shut the door quickly and tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with block letters printed on it. Stop reading. Stop asking. Next time, we won't knock. Her skin went cold. She checked the hallway again, but it was empty. Panic rose in her throat. She shoved the note into a drawer, grabbed her keys, and left the apartment without looking back. She drove aimlessly for an hour before pulling into the darkened parking lot of a grocery store, her hands trembling on the wheel. Megan had known something big enough that even years later, people were still watching, still threatening. And now Emily was caught in it. Her phone buzzed again. A text this time, from an unknown number. You open them. Don't make her mistake. Emily nearly dropped the phone. She stared at the screen, her heart racing, before throwing it onto the passenger seat as if it were burning her fingers. That night, she didn't go home. She checked into a roadside motel, the kind with flickering neon and stained carpets, and sat on the bed with the box of journals spread around her. She told herself she'd stop, that she'd burn them like Sarah said. But Megan's words drew her back in, whispering across the years. August 1st. They caught me sneaking into the office. Harris grabbed my arm, so hard it bruised. He said if I kept digging, he'd make sure no one believed me. He said they'd already ruined others. That no one would care if I disappeared. Emily thinks I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I know what I saw. I know what they did by the lake. I can still hear the woman crying. Emily pressed her palms against her eyes, tears stinging. Guilt gnawed at her. She remembered Megan trying to tell her these things, years ago, but Emily had laughed, too scared to believe. She'd abandoned her friend to carry the burden alone. And now Megan was gone, leaving only these warnings behind. A soft knock at the motel door made her jump. She grabbed her phone, ready to dial 911, but when she peeked out the curtain, she saw a woman standing there, nervously clutching a tote bag. Emily's chest tightened. It was Sarah. She opened the door quickly, pulling her inside. How did you know I was here? Emily asked, her voice shaking. Sarah looked pale, her eyes darting around the room. They're watching you. I figured you wouldn't go home after that note. You really don't understand what you've stepped into. Emily shoved a journal into her hands. Then explain it to me. Because all I know is Megan's dead, and she left me this. She wanted me to know. Sarah flipped through the pages, her jaw clenched. I told her to stop. We all did. She wouldn't listen. And now her voice cracked, and she pressed her fist to her mouth. There's more to this than just ghost stories and rumors. People got paid to keep quiet. People who live in this town, people you probably grew up around. If you push this, they'll come after you just like they did Megan. Emily's voice trembled. So we do nothing? Pretend she was crazy? Sarah looked at her, tears in her eyes. Do you want to end up like her? The air in the room felt suffocating. Emily glanced at the stack of journals, Megan's voice spilling across the pages like a lifeline and a curse. For the first time, she realized there was no safe way forward. Reading meant danger, but ignoring meant betraying Megan again. And this time, there would be no second chance. The motel room reeked of stale smoke and fear. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, wringing her hands, while Emily paced back and forth with the journal clutched to her chest. You keep telling me to drop it, Emily snapped, her voice rising. But you're the one who came here. You tracked me down, Sarah. Why? Sarah's eyes flicked to the door, as though someone might burst in. Because I couldn't stop thinking about her, she whispered. About Megan. The last time I saw her, she begged me to help. I told her I couldn't. I told her I was scared. And then a month later, she was gone. Her shoulders shook, and Emily realized with a pang that Sarah had been carrying her own guilt all these years. Emily sat beside her. She left these journals for a reason. She wanted us to know. If we stop, we're just letting them win. Sarah looked at her, eyes shining. You don't understand. It wasn't just the staff. There were parents involved. Donors. The camp wasn't just a summer getaway. It was a front. For laundering money, covering up deals, who knows what else. Harris and Jen were small pieces. The real danger is higher up. Emily felt the ground tilt beneath her. How do you know all this? Sarah bit her lip, hesitating. Because after Megan died, someone contacted me. A man named Daniel. He said he used to work for Harris. Said he had proof of what really happened at Silver Lake. But when I agreed to meet him, he never showed. A week later, I heard he'd left town. Or maybe he didn't leave. Emily's pulse quickened. Do you still have his number? Sarah nodded reluctantly, digging through her tote bag until she found a crumpled scrap of paper. Emily snatched it up, her heart hammering. If he's still out there, maybe he's the one who can finally explain all of this. Sarah grabbed her wrist. Or maybe he's dead. Or worse, maybe he's working for them now. Emily, you have no idea who you can trust. Emily pulled free. Then we find out. That night, she dialed Daniel's number with shaking fingers. The line rang and rang before a man's gravelly voice answered. Who is this? Emily swallowed hard. My name's Emily Carter. I was at Silver Lake. I have Megan's journals. There was a long silence, then a sharp intake of breath. Where are you? Why? She asked, suddenly aware of how dangerous this call might be. Because if you've really got them, you're already in more danger than you know. Against Sarah's protests, Emily agreed to meet him in a diner an hour outside town. The drive felt endless, the headlights carving tunnels through the night. Sarah sat stiffly in the passenger seat, arms crossed. This is insane, she muttered. He could be setting us up. Or he could be the only one who tells us the truth. Emily shot back. The diner was nearly empty when they arrived. Just a couple truckers at the counter and a waitress wiping down tables. A man sat in a corner booth, his cap pulled low. He looked up as they entered, eyes sharp despite his worn face. Emily, he asked. She nodded, sliding into the booth across from him. Sarah reluctantly followed. Daniel's gaze flicked to the journals in Emily's bag. I thought those were gone for good. Emily leaned forward. What really happened at Silver Lake? Daniel hesitated, then lowered his voice. The camp was a cover. Harris was on the payroll of some very wealthy people. They used Silver Lake to funnel money, to hide meetings. But kids started seeing things they shouldn't. Megan was one of them. She figured out more than anyone realized. Sarah's voice shook. And that's why she's dead. Daniel's jaw tightened. I can't prove it. But I know Harris wasn't acting alone. When Jen threatened to go public, she disappeared. When Megan started writing things down, She got cornered. And when I tried to help her, he trailed off, his hand trembling around his coffee cup. Emily's throat closed. You're saying it wasn't an accident? That someone silenced her. Daniel met her gaze. I'm saying if you don't stop now, you'll end up the same way. Before Emily could reply, the bell over the diner door jingled. A tall man in a dark coat walked in, scanned the room, and fixed his eyes on their booth. Daniel stiffened. Don't look. He's one of them. Emily's blood turned to ice. The man ordered coffee, but never stopped watching. Daniel shoved a napkin across the table, scribbled with an address. If you really want answers, go here. But don't call me again. This is the last time we talk. Then he slid out of the booth and walked out the back door. Emily stuffed the napkin into her pocket, heart pounding. Sarah whispered urgently, we should leave. Now. But as they hurried to the car, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the address burning in her pocket. Megan's voice echoed in her head, lines from the journal she'd read just hours before. They think they can scare me into silence. But if anyone ever finds this, promise me you won't be afraid. Promise me you'll finish what I started. Emily clenched her fists. For the first time since Megan's death, she felt something stronger than fear, resolve. She was done running. She would find the truth, no matter the cost. The rain came down in sheets as Emily and Sarah pulled off the highway, tires hissing against the wet asphalt. The address Daniel had scrawled on the napkin led them to the edge of an abandoned industrial park, its warehouses looming like silent tombstones. Emily parked the car under a flickering streetlight, her hands trembling on the wheel. This is insane, Sarah whispered, hugging her coat tighter. We should burn those journals and forget all of this. Emily shook her head, her jaw set. Megan trusted me. She trusted us. I won't let her voice disappear. Sarah sighed, exasperated, but followed her as they trudged through puddles toward the rusted warehouse doors. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and the faint metallic tang of oil. Their footsteps echoed off the concrete floor. Emily's flashlight beams swept across broken pallets, graffiti-scrawled walls, and finally, a stack of old filing cabinets shoved against the far corner. Her pulse quickened. She dropped the bag of journals and yanked at the drawers. Papers spilled out, receipts, invoices, ledgers. Sarah picked one up, scanning it with widening eyes. Emily, these are bank records. Transfers to offshore accounts. From parents. From donors. All under Silver Lake Foundation. Emily's heart pounded as she flipped through the documents. This is it. Proof. But before she could say more, the sound of a car door slamming echoed from outside. Voices followed, deep and angry. Emily froze. Sarah's face drained of color. They found us. Emily shoved papers into her bag, fumbling, her hands slick with sweat. The warehouse door screeched open, and 3 men stepped in, silhouetted by headlights from the lot. One of them she recognized instantly, Harris. His face was harder now, crueler, his eyes narrowing when they landed on her. You should have stayed away, he growled. Sarah clutched Emily's arm. Run. But there was nowhere to go. Harris and the others advanced, their boots crunching on the concrete. Emily tried to stand her ground. Megan died because of you. How many others? How long were you going to keep burying the truth? Harris smirked, a humorless curl of his lip. Megan was a mistake. She dug too deep, just like you. Some stories aren't meant to be told. Emily's throat burned, but before she could respond, one of the men lunged and ripped the bag from her shoulder. The journals tumbled out, scattering across the floor. Pages flapped like wounded birds. No, Emily cried, scrambling after them, but Harris kicked the papers aside. He crouched, picking up one of Megan's journals, thumbing through it with mocking disdain. Pathetic. She thought she could expose us with this? He tossed it onto the ground, letting it fall into a puddle of oil and rainwater. Emily's chest heaved. That was her life. Her voice. Harris leaned close, his breath sour. And now it's gone. Just like you will be, if you don't walk away. Sarah tugged at Emily's sleeve, pleading, tears brimming in her eyes. Please, Emily, don't. But Emily couldn't. Not after everything. She stood tall, her hands shaking but her voice steady. I won't stop. Harris's face darkened. He nodded to the men. Take them. Panic erupted. Emily and Sarah bolted toward the side door, their footsteps slapping against the slick floor. One of the men grabbed Sarah's coat, yanking her back. She screamed. Emily spun, slamming a rusted pipe into his arm, and he cursed, letting go. They burst into the night, sprinting through the downpour, lungs burning, shoes slipping on the asphalt. Behind them, headlights flared to life. An engine roared. Emily and Sarah dove behind a dumpster as a black SUV barreled past, its lights sweeping the lot. Sarah gasped for breath, clutching her chest. "We can't keep doing this, Emily. We're going to die?" Emily pressed her forehead against the cold metal, tears mingling with rain. She wanted to say something reassuring, but she couldn't. Because Sarah was right. They were in way over their heads. By the time they staggered back to the car, soaked and shivering, the bag of journals was lighter, half the notebooks gone, stolen in the chaos. Emily clutched what remained to her chest, numb with despair. "We lost too much," she whispered. Sarah's voice cracked. "Then maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's time to quit." But Emily couldn't shake Megan's words, echoing from the pages she'd read. "Promise me you'll finish what I started." Even so, exhaustion pressed down like lead. Her ally Daniel had vanished. Megan's journals were mostly destroyed or stolen, and Harris was hunting them. For the first time, Emily felt the icy claws of defeat digging into her ribs. She pulled onto the highway in silence, headlights slicing through the endless storm. Sarah stared out the window, her face pale, hollow. Hours later, when Emily finally pulled into her driveway, the house loomed dark and still. But as she stepped out, she froze. The front door was ajar, swaying gently in the wind. Her blood ran cold. "Sarah," she whispered, backing toward the car. But it was too late. A figure stepped out of the shadows on her porch. Not Harris. Not one of his men. Someone else entirely. "You don't know what you've done," the figure said, voice low and measured. But it's too late to turn back now. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs, her world collapsing around her. She realized with sickening clarity there were more players in this game than she had ever imagined. And every one of them wanted the journals. Emily's breath came fast and shallow as the stranger on her porch stepped fully into the weak light. He wasn't dressed like Harris's men, no dark coat, no rigid stance. Instead, he wore a plain flannel shirt, jeans, and an expression caught between pity and warning. His eyes, however, were sharp as knives. "Who are you?" Emily demanded, clutching the journals to her chest. Sarah gripped her arm, her voice breaking. Don't talk to him." The man raised his hand slowly, as if calming frightened animals. "My name is Thomas. I used to be part of Silver Lake's board. I know what Harris is capable of, what he's done. But you too." He glanced at the journals. "You don't understand how deep this goes." Emily's jaw tightened. "Then explain it." Thomas stepped closer, his boots creaking against the wooden porch. "Those journals are more than just Megan's words. She wrote things she saw, things she overheard. Names, dates, numbers. That makes you targets. Harris isn't the only one looking for them. There are people far above him, wealthy men and women who would burn this town to the ground before letting their secrets out." Sarah trembled, tears welling. "Then we're doomed. We don't stand a chance." Emily shook her head fiercely. "No. If Megan risked everything to write this down, then I'll risk everything to make it known. I won't let them bury her again." For a long moment, Thomas studied her. Then he reached into his coat. Emily stiffened, but instead of a weapon, he pulled out a flash drive. He set it on the porch railing. "Backup records. Things I copied before I ran. I couldn't stop them then. Maybe you can." Emily's hand hovered over the drive, doubt clawing at her chest. Sarah whispered, "Emily, please. This is suicide. We should take what's left of the journals and disappear." But Emily knew hiding was no longer possible. Every step she'd taken since finding Megan's words had led her here, to this crossroads. She pocketed the drive. "Where's the final piece? The proof that ties it all together?" Thomas's face darkened. "Locked away in Harris's estate. A safe in his study. That's where the contracts are. If you want to bring him down, that's where you go." Sarah gasped. "You can't be serious. That place is a fortress." But Emily was already nodding, the decision solidifying inside her like stone. "Then that's where I'm going." Hours later, under the shroud of night, Emily and Sarah crouched outside the sprawling mansion Harris called home. Its windows glowed faintly, shadows moving inside. Emily's heart thundered in her chest, but her grip on Megan's journal was steady. Sarah hissed, "This is madness. We'll get caught." Emily's voice was low but firm. Then at least we'll know we tried. They slipped through the back, Thomas's crude map guiding them past security lights and cameras. The storm had passed, leaving the air thick and heavy, every sound magnified. Inside, the house was all gleaming wood and expensive art, a stark contrast to the rot Emily knew it hid. They crept down the hall, the silence broken only by the ticking of a distant clock. At last, they reached Harris's study. Emily's pulse roared in her ears as she knelt by the safe, the numbers Thomas had given her scrawled on her palm. Her fingers trembled, turning the dial. Behind her, Sarah whispered prayers under her breath. The lock clicked open. Emily exhaled shakily and pulled the heavy door wide. Inside were stacks of folders, bound contracts, photographs, evidence of everything Harris and his backers had built on lies and blood. She stuffed as much as she could into her bag, her mind racing with images of Megan, of her laughter, of her ink-stained fingers scribbling late into the night. Then came the voice that froze her blood. "I warned you." Harris stood in the doorway, two men at his side. His face was a mask of fury, his voice calm as death. "You just couldn't let it go." Sarah whimpered, clutching Emily's arm. Emily forced herself to stand, the bag heavy with truth. "Megan deserves justice. And so do all the others." Harris shook his head slowly, pityingly. "Justice? There is no justice here. Only survival. And you've just chosen the losing side." He nodded, and the men advanced. Emily's mind screamed at her to run, but her feet planted firm. She swung the bag over her shoulder and shoved Sarah toward the window. "Go." Sarah balked, but one look at Emily's face sent her scrambling. The men lunged, and Emily ducked, her body fueled by pure desperation. She slammed the safe door into one of them, buying seconds, and bolted for the window after Sarah. Glass shattered as they tumbled into the night, shards slicing Emily's arms. Behind them, Harris roared, the sound of a predator denied its prey. They hit the ground hard, rolling into the wet grass. Pain seared through Emily's body, but she clutched the bag to her chest like a lifeline. Sarah dragged her to her feet, sobbing. "Emily, we're not going to make it." But Emily met her eyes, fierce and unyielding. "Yes, we will. For Megan." They sprinted toward the tree line, Harris's men pounding after them. Bullets cracked through the night, whistling past their ears. Branches whipped their faces, mud sucked at their shoes. Emily's lungs burned, every step a war, but she never loosened her grip on the bag. At last, they stumbled onto the back road where Thomas waited in his rusted truck. He yanked the door open, shouting, "Get in." They threw themselves inside as the engine roared to life. Headlights flared behind them, Harris's SUV in furious pursuit. The truck careened down the road, tires screeching, the journals and stolen files rattling in Emily's lap. She clutched them, her knuckles white, her heart a drumbeat of defiance. Harris was close, closer than ever, and the night stretched ahead like an endless battlefield. This was it, the moment Megan's fight became hers, the moment Emily decided what price she was willing to pay for the truth. The truck rattled down the winding road, every bump jarring Emily's battered body. She pressed the bag of files and Megan's surviving journals tight against her chest, as if they were the only thing keeping her alive. Behind them, headlights bore down relentlessly, Harris's SUV a predator closing in on its prey. Thomas's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Hold on," he growled, swerving sharply onto a dirt road that cut through the woods. The truck fishtailed, mud spraying, trees flashing past in dizzying streaks. Sarah clung to the seat, sobbing, "He's not going to stop. He's never going to stop." Emily's voice cracked, but held firm. "Then we don't stop either." A deafening crack split the air as a bullet shattered the rear window. Glass sprayed across the cab, slicing Emily's arm. She bit back a scream, clutching the journals tighter. Thomas cursed under his breath, yanking the wheel as another shot tore through the taillight. "We can't outrun him forever," Sarah cried. "He'll kill us." Emily turned to Thomas. "The files, are they enough to expose him?" Thomas's jaw clenched. "Enough to burn everything he built. But they won't matter if we're dead before dawn." Emily's heart thundered. She thought of Megan, of her ink-stained fingers and stubborn grin, of the last words she had written. "Promise me you'll finish what I started." The promise seared through her like fire. She leaned forward, voice trembling but resolute. Then we make this in tonight. The road split ahead, one path leading deeper into the forest, the other toward the small town just a few miles away. Emily pointed to the town. Head there. If we make it to the station, if we get these files into the right hands, Harris can't touch us. Thomas swore under his breath but obeyed, swinging onto the paved road. The SUV roared after them, gaining fast. The town lights flickered in the distance, salvation so close it hurt. Emily whispered a prayer she hadn't spoken since childhood. Then, with a final burst of rage, Harris's SUV slammed into the back of the truck. The impact jolted Emily forward, the journals almost slipping from her grasp. Sarah screamed, clutching Emily's arm. Thomas fought to keep control as the truck skidded wildly. He's going to run us off the road. Emily's mind raced. They couldn't outrun him, couldn't outfight him. But maybe, just maybe, they could outsmart him. Thomas, she gasped, the bridge up ahead. Does it still have that sharp bend? His eyes widened in understanding. You're insane. Do it, Emily said, voice steel. The truck roared toward the bridge, Harris's SUV practically glued to their bumper. At the last second, Thomas jerked the wheel. The truck scraped the railing but held steady. Harris, too close, too fast, swerved too late. With a sickening crunch of metal and a spray of sparks, the SUV slammed into the barrier and careened off the edge, plunging into the black water below. Silence filled the cab, broken only by Sarah's ragged sobs. Emily twisted, staring back through the shattered window. The SUV was gone, swallowed by the river. Her chest heaved, torn between relief and horror. Had it really ended? Or was this just another reprieve? Drive, she whispered. Thomas pressed the gas, and minutes later, the truck screeched to a halt outside the police station. Emily stumbled out, clutching the journals and files, her body trembling with exhaustion. She burst through the doors, slamming the evidence onto the counter, her voice raw. These prove everything. Silver Lake, Harris, the board. Megan was right. Officers stared in shock as she collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Sarah knelt beside her, wrapping her arms around her as if to anchor her back to the world. Hours blurred together. Statements, questions, endless paperwork. By dawn, Harris's estate was swarming with police, his associates being rounded up one by one. The town buzzed with whispers, disbelief curdling into outrage. For once, Megan's voice wasn't buried. It was screaming through every headline, every broadcast, every whispered conversation. Yet Emily felt no triumph. Sitting on the motel bed later that morning, she stared at the battered journal in her lap, its pages water-stained, smeared with ink. Megan's handwriting danced before her eyes, alive with defiance and hope. Sarah touched her shoulder gently. It's over, she whispered. Emily shook her head, tears streaking her face. No, it's never over. Harris is gone, but there are others. The people above him, the ones he worked for, they're still out there. Sarah swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Emily closed the journal, holding it to her chest. We keep going. We make sure Megan's story is never forgotten. We fight until they can't bury the truth again. Outside, the morning sun rose over the battered town, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Emily felt both smaller and stronger than she ever had. Just one girl clutching a dead friend's words, daring to believe they could change the world. She didn't know if justice would truly come, or if the machine behind Silver Lake would simply rebuild in silence. But she knew one thing with unshakable certainty: Megan's voice lived on. And as long as Emily breathed, it would never be silenced again.